This is Michelle Martin with the New Start Career Network, and I want to welcome Marianne James, who is one of our volunteer coaches. She also has her own coaching practice, Jancom Associates, and she is here today to share with us her presentation, Uprooted to Uplifted, Turning Circumstances into Opportunity. I asked Marianne to do this because we had been talking about something she was doing in her group coaching, and she had shared this presentation. I think it is really valuable for all of our members, so I asked her if she would be willing to do it, and here she is. So welcome, Marianne, and thanks for agreeing to do this presentation.
Thanks very much for the welcome, Michelle, and hi, everyone. As Michelle said, I'm Marianne James. My company is Jancom Associates, but more importantly, my coaching brand is Ignite Growth Coaching. I'll be sharing more about myself and how this all came about a little bit later in the program. It'll be woven throughout the entire program. I did want to share, however, how this came about is that I had been out of work myself for quite some time. I had been let go in my mid-50s. And at that time, I wasn't sure how or where to go. And I felt like I was sending out resumes all the time and with little direction and getting a little frustrated, getting a lot of rejections, getting just a lot of no's, and losing sight of what my value was and what my purpose and where my future might potentially lead me. So why don't you begin by typing out in the chat box if you feel the same way. Do you feel that way? Do you feel like you're busy sending out resumes and spinning your wheels and not always getting somewhere you want to be? If that's the case, go ahead and type in the chat box, please. So
Absolutely, very much so.
And that's no surprise, because we wouldn't be here if it weren't for that. This particular program that I'm going to share with you has evolved. It's some of the concepts I have been using in my group coaching session, as Michelle said, but along the way, I kind of took it to a new level to really try to give people some way to not just talk about, well, what do I do? How do I do it? How can I further my efforts to take me in a direction I like to be in, but actually give you some tools which we will eventually get up to and lead up to at the end. Uprooted to Uplifted describes how I felt when I was let go of my job after almost 25 years and 2 days before Christmas. And the uprooted part was just, you can all identify with that, but it's my journey of how I came to be uplifted and where I am now. And I hope there's a piece of that you can all apply to your circumstance to turn it into opportunity. So what we'll be doing today was we're going to talk about cultivating pathways that lead to opportunity, establishing connections that result in positive engagement and productive engagement. We're going to talk about navigating the journey that you're on, and also about a 4-step process that'll help you ignite your own personal and professional growth. You'll be able to apply it to all areas of your life, and then transition from seeing not only impossibilities, but the possibilities within that. And this simple tool, I think, will help you along those lines. Hold on. Hold on a second. It paused me, so I have to go back.
Right. While you're doing that, people are definitely resonating with what you're talking about.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's, like I said, that's why we're here. That's how we're here. And we all come together for a common purpose today. We're back up there now? Good.
Yep.
All right, so let's get started. I'm going to start with a little bit about my own life and how I view things and how it make comparisons to how some of us might feel today. And I always pictured my life in full bloom. I'm a social person. I'm an active person. Not a lot gets me down. I'm usually able to see the positivity in most circumstances. But throughout life, I felt like the bright red tree there. I love fall because it makes me think of brilliance. It makes me think that anything is possible, that something that was once dormant can shine so brightly. And I spend a lot of time in the outdoors, and I get a lot of lessons from nature. A lot of those lessons include just all about resilience and all about bouncing back and all about just, hope that one day you can shine brilliantly again. And along the way, though, somewhere I'll see a lot of trees that are uprooted and I'll think, wow, that's how I feel. These things are holding on just by the bare bones. They can barely stand and fight anymore. They can barely grow tall. And so I started thinking about, well, what does it really feel like to be uprooted? And some of the things that come to my mind are rejected, confused, scared, panicked, unworthy, overwhelmed. So why don't you just, again, type in the chat box if it's one of these or if there's some other feeling that you've been experiencing that within your uprooted state. It might be one on a slide. It might be another of your own. Excuse me. And then I think about, well, what if we replace those feelings with other feelings that would help us look for change and opportunity in the change? So first, I'm curious if those words resonate, or is there other words that you're feeling as well? And then after that, what could you replace one of those words with? So Michelle, maybe throw out a few.
Yeah, so rejected it for sure. Someone says, agree with all of these, also alone, which I've heard a lot. Are there other words or feelings that people are having?
So take those words that you just typed in the chat box now and think about it for a minute. And when you're ready, type back in the chat box the opposite of that, where you'd like to be or how you see it on the flip side.
So accepted, confident, inspired.
Accepted, confident, and inspired. I see those.
One of the negative words that wasn't up there, and I do hear this a lot too, is anger.
Yeah.
But another positive, empowered, valued.
All that great stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So this is great. And thank you for your answers and for participating. And the nice thing, that's what this presentation is about. We ask, well, yeah, rejected, confused, scared, panicked. That's not happy stuff. But the whole purpose of the presentation isn't to bring us down, because God knows we're probably there are many days already. But it is to pick us up and to really look at the flip side of that. And how do we reach some of that acceptance? How do we reach some of that? Where do we get inspiration from? How can we regain our confidence? So I visit the same spot a lot. And that red tree that was brilliant eventually turns different colors. And there's this one tree that you see in the yellow there. And it's always beautiful. And this is at a shrine nearby my house. And I just see it all the time. And then one day I went back, and I don't always go outside a lot in the winter, but the sky was blue. And behind the tree, I could see that everything was really bright and welcoming. But the tree itself, I never realized how gnarled and tangled it was. And again, it started me thinking, this is my life. All my leaves are falling off. Everything I ever hoped in is gone. I experienced it in my divorce. I experienced it in my father's death. I experienced it when my son was chronically ill. And yet the tree still stands, and so do I. Why is that? How can that be happening? And I stare at this and I'm thinking, not only is it standing, but look at all the gnarls and twists and turns. But yet to stand, it has to remain balanced. It has to remain strong. It has to gain its strength from somewhere. So I started thinking, well, when we're in our dormant stage, which is a lot like we might feel now, what do we have left? How can we possibly attract others to ourselves? How can we establish some kind of brilliance in our own lives so that in our transition, we can continue to grow and thrive? Now, if you think of fall, after fall comes winter, but what comes after winter is the spring and the summer. So it's rebirth. So today, I ask that you open your minds to the possibility of rebirth. And it's going to take you away from, how do I do my resume? How many did I send out this week? How do I market myself? It's just going to take you out of that space. And from your mind, we're going to go into the heart a bit today to help you get back on track in that aspect as well. So there are several types of change that I usually identify. I broke it down pretty simply. The first one is the developmental change. And in a developmental change, it's doing something over and over again, maybe improving on it a little. And I equate that to the resume. We've sent out millions of resumes. We constantly send them out. We don't always get calls back. If we do, it's not as many that we'd like. Maybe the percentage is pretty low. But what we do is we go back and we improve on that. And we go into a resume portal, or we hire a coach, or we work with someone and we say, well, let's make our resume a little bit better. But we still don't get to the point where we really feel we're progressing as quickly as we'd like. And the next phase that you would move into is the transitional phase. And that replaces something what is with something a little different. I've seen, Michelle, I think you've already done things like LinkedIn or maybe some Facebook webinars. And you hear a lot about LinkedIn, and I'm a big believer in it. And it really helps you, God bless you, go forward with a new face. You can recreate yourself on LinkedIn. So in the transitional phase, I refer to LinkedIn because, as you can see on the slide, it replaces what is with something completely new. Now, beyond that, that's still the head part. That's still the head part. People are looking at the face value of what you have to offer, maybe how you've done things, but they're not getting in touch with the why. To take you again into the heart would be looking at transformational change. Transformational change is really doing something a little bit different that you never thought you would do, or that would take you to a new level from what you're already spending most of your time doing. In this slide, I've indicated that transformational change might be networking. It might be, if you're already networking, it might be networking on a different level or with a different intent and purpose, or in a different area for more growth than you're used to, and more than just shaking hands and giving out business cards. So it's an unknown future state, and it kind of unfolds as you go along, and it comes with being open to change. And that's what we're talking about today, is being open to change. So type in the box, if you will, what phase do you feel you spend most of your time in at this point?
Transitional.
Mm-hmm.
Now in transformational.
Okay. That's good.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're in transitional or transformational, can you also type a word about what you're doing that's keeping you in that state, or that is helping you in that state, because you've obviously come from the first level of change.
Opportunity to reset.
Okay, good. These are all excellent. So let's hold those thoughts, and you can keep typing if you want. Michelle will monitor that. Thank you. And let's look at the cycle of acceptance. So we've just talked about the change, but within change, to move forward, you need to have acceptance. And I particularly like this chart because it's not your typical businessy type of, you know, here's the 4 quadrants of change. But I think we could probably all identify with it, especially because it has emoticons, and who doesn't really identify with emoticons? But we start with the motivation competencies are on the left, and we start with denial and fear and anger and resistance. We probably felt a lot of that when we were first let go of our jobs, or we first entered into this period of change. And a lot of times we also feel relief. So it's not always denial, fear, anger, and resistance, but there is a sense of relief, or a sense of hope, or a sense of, wow, that wasn't a great job anyway. Maybe it's a chance to redefine my future. But yet that doesn't always happen, because then somewhere along the way, this roller coaster sets in, And if you don't like roller coasters, you won't enjoy this ride. But the denial, the fear, the anger, resistance, for some people, it doesn't last that long. And for others, it does. It just depends on who you are and your circumstance. But the thing that we do after we get through all that and we process all that is we get into the acceptance and we start to think, all right, they're not hiring me back. And maybe by this point, either is anybody else. But so we have to be open. And I mentioned openness before today. We have to be open to what is going to go on, to what might happen other than our predetermined journey, other than I'm laid off, I send out resumes, and therefore now I get a job, and that's what my future is tied to. So it takes a certain sense of openness, trying new things and testing them. And for many, relearning and going into a whole different field on its own. And it's not until we convince ourselves that all this is okay and we integrate it into our fiber of our lives that we reach that unconscious competence. I like to look at the top there. The unconscious incompetence is where we all start out. We don't, we feel as if we've been let go. We're not necessarily incompetent, but we're unconsciously processing all these feelings, the denial, the fear, the anger. I mean, think of an iceberg, 10% is on the top. So what we process mostly is on the top, but not underneath there. And the whole goal is to go from unconscious competence, where life is good again, and we're doing things and heading in a positive direction without really thinking about it. In the middle, the conscious incompetence and conscious competence is where we do most of our thinking and moving and growing. And that's where most of the pain is as well. So within that cycle of acceptance, we still find ourselves stuck in circumstance. And I go back to my walks in the woods because I'm a tree hugger nature person. And I find things all around and signs that remind me that you have to grab hold of whatever it is that you can find and be open to change. And we don't need what we sometimes think we need to thrive. I see these trees in this picture and they're holding on by a thread. And sometimes I feel like I'm just holding on by a thread, but yet how can I stand strong? What do I need? What do I need to be able to grow? And sometimes it's not the things I think. The one on the right where it's hanging on a rock, and what could it possibly be hanging onto on a rock? What could be nourishing that tree, which has got to grow a lot stronger and higher than I have to, but yet it still is resilient. So I'll ask you to type in the chat box, what makes you resilient? Where do you draw your strength from? If you can share something along those lines. Or what can you hold on to when you're challenged? Anybody?
I'm waiting.
That takes a lot of thought. Told you, sorry for making you think, guys, but that's what I told you.
Family is one.
What?
Family.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Family, friends, and knowing that there's a better way.
Mm-hmm. So we'll go with those. And it's all out there somewhere. Sometimes it's hard to put your finger on it. But this is actually, my mother always told me, bloom where you're planted. And I fought that tooth and nail. I just didn't want to be where I was. And when I was let go, I didn't want to be in that situation. And I thought, well, I have to either move somewhere else or I have to do something different. And I started going down paths which I really shouldn't have been going down. And finally, I kept resonating. Just bloom when you're planted, find a way through. What else is in there, Michelle?
Going back to school and learning new skills, family, friends, laughter, and reality. That's definitely true. You have to, sometimes you have to, find that laughter. Encouragement by family and friends, surrounding myself with positivity, my career coach.
Great.
Yeah, networking group.
Yep. So it's all out there. We just have to find it.
Spirituality.
Oh, these are great. Thank you for capturing those.
Mm-hmm.
So my favorite Dr. Seuss,
mm-hmm.
one of my favorite authors, said, you have brains in your head, you have feet in your shoes, you can steer yourself in any direction you choose. So to me, the way I interpret that is when I'm stuck in circumstance, I have to find the options. And then once I find those options, I have to figure out where I see myself going and where I'm going to find my purpose. And I always think of things again of different paths. And as soon as I get stuck, I think of, I have to open up a pathway. So if I'm driving in my car and I hit a detour, what do? They take you around. You go around somewhere else. So when I hit a detour, how the heck am I going to get around it? I have to find a pathway to go down. So then I become really, really busy. And I'm sure if I asked you all to raise your hand or to type in the box, are you busy too? You probably say, yes, you are. But sometimes we get so busy that we lose sight of some of the options or some of the pathways that might actually be available to us. I love this particular cartoon. Here's the guy with the round wheels, and the ones with the square wheels are already pulling, and they're so busy trying to get things done that they don't even notice that there's a better way of doing it. And that's why I love these webinars, Michelle, because it gives us the opportunity to learn from one another and to maybe try out something and find a better way of doing something different than we've been doing it all this time.
Erica says, I get very sidetracked with errands and smaller projects, which I see and hear that a lot with our members. Also, other family members and friends assume because you're not working, then maybe you can do some things for them. And I see a lot of that as well.
And thank you for bringing that up, because when we get into the process part of this, you'll still be able to do that. You're just going to think about when and how to do it differently in a more productive environment. So great. So the thought on here is, are you open to ideas? Are you open to suggestions? Are you open to forward-thinking momentum? And I always have this other quote. It's a quote from Marian James. And I always said, hope is not found on a keyboard, because I would find myself typing and thinking, oh my gosh, if I'm busy and I'm exposed and I'm sending things out and everything else, that somebody will find me, somebody will discover me. And I just kept hoping and hoping. And then I realized hope is not on a keyboard. I got to get away from there. I have to do something a little bit different. I got to shake. My kids hate when I say this. I got to shake it up. Anytime you're stuck, I go, you got to shake it up. They just want to kill me. But that's the way it is. So the journey, you've heard this, a journey of 1,000 miles starts with a tiny step at times. And our journey is really going from the known to the unknown. So the known, as I look at it, is where our circumstance is. And sometimes it's hard to take those first steps. We're stuck in the mud. But if we go to the unknown, where the opportunity is, it takes us getting out of our box, doing something different than we have been doing. And it doesn't mean, I know I mentioned resumes, it doesn't mean stop sending resumes and do something else. Everybody's doing something different. It just means, where are you now? Do one thing different that will move you along and take that first step on your new journey into the unknown. And it's along the way where you're going to find the meaning and the purpose and some other avenues that might accelerate your life and your change. For the pot of gold at the end, it's different for everybody. But what happens is we're kind of conditioned to step out, and there's always got to be something at the end of the rainbow. And I've been on some seminars that are a little bit different, where it's, what are you doing now? Where do you want to be? But the part in between there is lost. And let's face it, we're not on this call because we're 20 or 30 anymore. We've been there. We've done a lot of that. We've chased success. But I know for myself, I know my future journey has to include that every step I take has to have some kind of meaning and purpose in it. Yes. I don't want to miss that part. Yes. Because I don't know how much longer is going to be out there. So we have a lot of questions. We have a vision. What is your vision for the future? Can anybody share what their vision for the future is?
You can unmute yourself, or you can,
yeah, you can share.
Type it in chat. Have you thought about that in terms of a vision?
Or how you thought your journey might unfold? And you could just, again, come off mute if you want and share. if you're tired of typing and you want to actually talk.
And have you given yourselves the opportunity to think about that?
Right. So hold that thought, because we are going to think about that now. And what I'm going to ask you to do is, again, I think of my life as a story. And in that story, I have had a past, and it hasn't always been pretty at times, but it's also had some great times. And within my story, it's not unlike any other. There's a plot, which is where I'm trying to get to, or how I'm going to live my life. And there's always some kind of conflict or challenge. But then there's my character. So my character has always shown up in different ways. Sometimes it's been positive, but sometimes it hasn't. It's been judgmental, or it hasn't been the kind of person I want to be. And it's usually when we're stressed that we resort to probably our most unflattering types of personality traits, when we're really back up against the wall. So you may find within this journey that you've been let go, you're frustrated, and you're short with people, or you're having a hard time controlling your emotions. So I keep telling myself, get back in character, Marion. If you have to turn the page and write the story, what's the story going to say? And the choice is ours now, because the page is blank. If we don't have a job and we're kind of stalled, the page is blank. So where do we want our character to be? Do we want it to be the servant that goes out and serves? Do we want it to be the person that goes back? And none of this is right or wrong. Do we want to be the person that is safety and comfort in the arms of another corporation? Do we want to, work in nonprofit? Do we want to be a nurse and save lives? Like, it's just, you can continue your story. So when you get stuck and you're thinking of, I don't know what my vision for the future is, think of your story. And everybody loves a story, and our story is the best story out there, your own story. And it puts you in that thinking mode. It takes you away from, a process mode. Again, it takes you from your head. I always refer to this, your head, into your heart. And it's here when you're crafting your future that you can color outside the lines. When we get into the process, I'm going to ask you to look at possibilities, and they don't have to be the safe possibilities. Sometimes it's okay to go out of the lines and to think, this might be a long shot, but what would it look like if I did want to pursue it? We're usually very safe in our zones, but it's your life, it's your story. And I encourage you, just because other people think it might not, God bless it, might not think it's a safe place to be. I find, and you might find too, that everybody wants to put me in a box. Marion, and I've started this coaching consulting business. I'm 3.5 years into it. It's taken a turn for the better. It's been great. But people, my family's like, Marion, you got to find a full-time job. Because in their minds, that's always been the safety zone. But it's not safe for me anymore. Plus, nobody hired me. So why would I get a full-time job? So I'm thinking of my character. I'm thinking of being a little more gutsy, being a little more courageous, and really holding tight to my pen. And I hope you hold tight to yours. Make a story that means something for you, and don't let anybody else write it. Don't try to mimic somebody else. Also in our job search, we might find people who have ventured out, colored on their own, off their own lines, outside their own lines, and something worked out really great for them. So we scurry about, we think, well, that I could do that too, but it might not work for you. So really stay true to yourself. So let me share with you my journey, and then how this little process how I came to be where I am. So my journey, and again, I told you a little bit about my past, not unlike anybody else's, filled with change, filled with different circumstances. But when I lost my job, it was December of 2010, on December 23rd. I'd been there 25 years. I was head of learning and development. I had the best job in the world. I had the best staff in the world. Because I had been there 25 years, and some of you might resonate with this, and feel free to type any thoughts that pop into your head in the chat box at any time. When I came out of there, at first I thought, oh, this is great. I sat in front of the TV, feet up, drinking coffee, watching shadow traffic. No more commute. This is awesome. It didn't take me long to realize that whole fear and rejection and everything else, because the overwhelming financial responsibility. I have raised my children alone since they were 3 and 6, and there hasn't been that second income coming in. So I was pretty much alone and very, very much overwhelmed. Plus the fact that not only did I lose the security of the job, my whole life was tied to my friends at work. When you work somewhere and you go somewhere for 25 years and you've all raised your children together, they become your support group. And so the rug is pulled out from underneath. So on my journey, I had used up all my severance because nobody hired me. And I thought, you know what, I'm just going to have to try something different. I'm not going to not send out resumes, and I'm going to still think in my mind, yeah, there's some hope that I might find that full-time steady job. But if not, 2 years down the road, what happens? Am I going to be left holding the bag? Am I going to literally be like destitute? And I thought to myself, okay, this whole pathways thing came to me about, I got to go down a new path. There's got to be more than one path. And I started down thinking, you know, how did I land here? And I'm at a detour. What pathways am I going to start establishing? And it's during that time that I learned a number of things, and these are just a few of them. I learned that sending out thousands of resumes didn't guarantee me success, that everything I heard about, I had been in sales selling copiers. If I knocked on 100 doors, I knew I would get 4 demonstrations and I would sell 1 copier. Well, I was sending out hundreds of resumes and I didn't get 1 job. So something changed. Another thing I learned is that cultivating and leveraging connections was critical to my job search. And I'll show you in a minute what areas yielded the most. That smart planning is essential to developing those fruitful pathways I was looking for. I couldn't just sit there and say, I'm going to try this, I'm going to try that. And then a year goes by and I couldn't even remember what I tried because I didn't really plan it out. I learned productivity comes in many forms. I used to think that if I didn't work 9 to 5, sending out resumes, everybody would laugh at me. Everybody said, well, you're not serious. Yeah, you're working at home. Or family members say, well, you know, you take mom to the eye doctor because you're not working anyway. Well, anybody on this call who hasn't thought for 1 minute that sending out resumes and looking for a job isn't more than a full-time job, you know exactly what we're talking about here. I also learned it's not quantity that quality, it's quality that matters. So when we get into this process, I'll talk about making better quality connections. And then connecting with the intent to give results in opportunity. And I can tell you that now, after cultivating some of the pathways I'm going to share, I'd say 90 to 95% of my business is in-house because I met somebody with the intent to give, and somewhere down the road now, 2 and 3 years later, it's resulting in opportunity. It's too big to ignore. So anybody have any questions up to this point? Because we're going to move into some of the growth and transition. If you're ready, type ready in the box.
Ready.
Okay, good. So let's talk about growth and transition. Again, tying it with my whole theme, I came up with a 4-step process that I didn't realize I was using at the time, but it's how I get from point A to point B, basically anywhere in life. And I also share this with companies. It works in a business sense and with personal kind of life coaching. And for anything that we need to do, the first thing we need to do is spark awareness of where we're at. Like really sit down with ourselves and say, where are we? How did I get here? What led me here? You know, how am I stuck? What are my biggest obstacles? Really an awareness of where we are. And along with awareness comes owning how we got there in the first place and our part in it. The next part is kindling potential. That's when we look at, all right, I know where I am. I'm at that barricade, that detour or whatever. I need to establish pathways. Well, what could they possibly look like? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, however many. What could they possibly look like? And sometimes it's so hard to see around that obstacle that we can't, but we have to sit there and really think about it. And then you've got 3 or 4, maybe 5 things outlined. And well, you know, out of all those things, you can't do all 5 at once. So which one are you going to do? And that's where I always resort to. And even on a corporate level, I can tell you, resort to which one feels best. What is your gut telling you? I know passion's a big word, but what is your gut telling you? Because that's usually the one that you're going to be more successful at right out of the box. And igniting growth is about putting action steps to those possibilities. Now that you've chose one, what are 3 to 5 steps that you can possibly take to follow that pathway and see if it's going to pan out? Now, the last part of my Ignite Growth process is when you're strong enough, and this is where, again, it goes back to the giving back. When you're strong enough to ignite growth in your own life, it really, if you can go ignite growth in somebody else's life, that's when you know that you've really come full circle. So you look like, here's some of the questions, and we'll be sharing I think we're sharing the presentation and the recording, right, Michelle?
Yep.
All right, so when you spark awareness, you're looking at where you are now. Where do you think you're going? What's working well for you right now? What are your biggest challenges? Where do you see yourself? What goals might you have for moving forward? And in kindling potential, how are you going to make forward progress? What are the options? Again, this is all about the options. Have you tried anything already? And if so, what was your result? You need to write this all out, and you will have a worksheet sent to you after this that'll give you the worksheet where you can document all this. What possibilities exist outside the lines, perhaps, that weren't there before? Where can I grow? And then, your passion, you look at what's the impact of of each option on your outcome, which might likely produce immediate results, because God knows we've had enough rejection. So we want to try to do something that's realistic, that we can do, at least have some immediate results. Which will have the greatest impact? Where's your gut leading you? Pick one to commit to first. And then the Ignite Growth is, again, now you've got to really put some steps to your actions. You've got to figure out what are the couple things I can do on a very fundamental level to start to move, to get on that path, to get out of being from the unknown towards the known. And this step sometimes is uncomfortable for people because it requires accountability. So by writing it down, you're holding yourself accountable, and hopefully you're going to really ask yourself the question, how am I going to be accountable for this? Because without accountability, it's just another process. So my pathways to growth look like this. Well, I have them on a sheet, but these, I'll summarize them here. I knew that I had sent out all these resumes, and I knew that I had to do something different. I had to get out of the house. I couldn't stay here 9 to 5 every day, regardless of what people said I should do. I just had to do something different. And I thought, if I can start establishing myself in other areas. So I had decided I was going to go into this coaching or consulting at that time. That was out of all those options. So I was in my awareness phase. My awareness was, I'm probably not getting a job right now. This is after 2 years and no severance left. So I went into my next phase, was kindling potential. What can I possibly do? So the first thing was consulting. Coaching was in there, but consulting was realistic because I had been doing corporate work already. So then I got into, okay, I chose that one. So I got into the next phase, which is, how am I going to, the passion was around the consulting. Everything was leading towards that. So how am I going to grow? So my pathways were here. First thing I needed to do was grow targeted business contacts. So I went about doing that by first increasing my LinkedIn exposure. So just a quick plug for LinkedIn. You probably are using it. A lot of people are using it. I was doing a presentation the other day for 95 people who were using it and thought they were using it really well. But there's so many things that you can do on LinkedIn to help increase your exposure. So I'm back to the sales thing with the copiers and the 100 for the one sale. On LinkedIn, in the beginning, I had 500 plus connections. But what I did is I went out and I would, every single night, I wanted to grow how many people were in the HR and talent development field. So I targeted them, I searched for them, and I invited a whole lot of people. Not all of them connect with you, as you know. However, the more connections you get, now that I have over 2,000 connections, almost everybody I invite connects with me. So you increase your likelihood. Also, I said, okay, what professional organizations exist in learning and development and HR? And there was the Society for Talent Development, Association for Talent Development, and SHRM, which is Human Resource Management. Not only did I join them and start networking with people, kind of people that I need to hang out with, but I also took a seat on a board. So giving, again, that giving. I volunteered, and lo and behold, again, a large portion of my business are people I met at ATD who said, oh, I saw you present, and you're really good in front of a group. Could you do a keynote or something? My networking changed completely. I went to a seminar called Knockout Networking, and it was this guy who was talking about, the ring, ding, 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 and he had boxing gloves on, and he talked about networking with purpose. So it changed me. It wasn't, I'm going with 500 cards and I hope I get 500 in return, because it means nothing, just clutters up. I started networking with purpose. I attended webinars to increase my knowledge and skills in that area. Last thing we want to do at our age is become obsolete. So choose things that are going to keep you current with what's going on in the world so you can have these current conversations. I also explored temp work. That didn't work out. But I did establish third-party contracting, where I found other consulting firms who hire me as a sub-consultant. Again, affiliate with the university was another pathway, and I uncovered a whole lot of stones at different universities that I was affiliated with, and finally ended up with an acquaintance at Rutgers who put me in touch with their professional development, their professional and continuing education department. And now I'm teaching programs with them. And volunteer in community or church. You meet so many business people. Everybody from PwC in my town goes to church, or a lot of them, and I meet them there, men and women. Again, it's the giving with intent. So these were my pathways, and you might have pathways of your own. So how did this look? Well, I created these little sheets for myself, because after all, I had been in management for all these years, and I thought, how am I going to hold myself accountable? So LinkedIn connections. I wanted to get 20 new connections per week. To get 20 new connections per week, I had to send out 100 invites. To increase exposure, I wanted to either comment on one article per week within my targeted group of people that would appreciate my comment, or write an article. And I did. Increased knowledge, 3 webinars or workshops per month. It could have been in person or it could have been online. It could be that I signed up and then listened to a recording. It could have been a TED Talk on YouTube. Professional development, 1 organization meeting per month. So I mentioned about the ATD and the Society for Human Resource Management. I didn't limit myself to those. I started thinking, what else would possibly help me add value or help me acquire a skill I don't have? One of those was also speaking. I was trying to get my voice so that I could help others. And I went to the National Speaker Association. So I look around and see which meeting per month, because there's millions of them, is going to add most value. It could be a meetup. It could be a lot of things. And then the university affiliation, I just made myself 2 times per month. I went to Montclair State, I went to Fairleigh Dickinson, I went to Rutgers, and I'd sit with people until the path led to where I was affiliated with a college and university. Because I have a passion for college and higher education and education in general. I was a teacher early on, but I also knew that it would give me more credibility to be associated with a large university. So those are my pathways. So what I'm going to challenge you all to do, and we won't have a lot of time for it here, is to really think about, if you had to establish 3 pathways, what would they be? You're at a road, you're at the obstacle, you're at the detour, you have to do something, or you just stay stuck where you are. That's the other option. What 3 pathways could you possibly go down? I'll just give you a minute to think about it. You can also share even just one of them if you want to type them in the chat box, or come off mute.
Yeah, I'm keeping an eye on chat. Does anybody want to unmute themselves or?
Okay, let's do this. We're going to go on. There's just another slide or 2, and then we're going to open it up. We'll unmute everybody and we'll have a discussion. All right? So the last part of this is that now that I've cultivated the opportunity, I'm holding myself accountable, and I'm going to push myself in a certain direction. Now I said, okay, I have to do more than that. I have to commit to it. Now this is a busy chart, But what I learned to do, and I do this every month, I take out a blank calendar. And I'm all for electronic. Sometimes I do it in writing in front of me. And I say, okay, if I'm going to send out 20 LinkedIn connections, when am I going to send out those connections? When am I going to attend webinars? Because Sunday comes, the week starts out, and before you know it, it's Saturday. And we talked about errands before. Well, you can do your errands within this process, but you're going to know that when you do the errands that you've already had some productivity that's taken place already. So if you look at my Sunday, that's the day that I do a lot of my correspondence, a lot of my emails, a lot of my planning for the week. Then on Mondays, the two heads that you see, those are webinars. And Mondays are a great day to do something educational for yourself because it gets your thoughts going, it keeps your spirits up. And also most people are just coming back into the office if you're trying to connect with them for a job, and you're going to get lost in the shuffle. It's a great time to reach out to others. It's a great time to plan what you want to do on LinkedIn for the week. Now, Tuesday is actually one of the best days, Tuesday and Thursday, late morning, early afternoon, to post something on LinkedIn and have it actually recognized. But Tuesday then, that's a good day also for sending out resumes. And maybe get greater opportunity for people to see that. Emails, I leave till the middle of the week, and webinars. And the point here is don't look at what I do each day and where I plug those in. I did this for the purpose of demonstration. But what I suggest is this becomes your plan. At first, when I first did this seminar, I had an actual business plan, and I thought, well, this is crazy. We're looking for a job and we're looking for a life. We don't need to plan out a business plan. But what we do need to do is account for our time. So now when you go back and look at this week after week, you can say, boy, I did do stuff and I got my errands done, but I don't feel bad for doing them because I also did all this other stuff. And so it kind of gives you some hope to know that you're doing something and taking back some of your life and being responsible for your own actions and for your own movement and your own momentum towards your future. So what we're going to discuss now openly is what pathways can you explore? These are just some of the things. I ask you to take this particular slide back, and if you're serious about cultivating your future, look at what pathways, pick 3, what steps you'll take. So we write down those maybe 5 steps. What one action will you immediately take? Just one little first baby step. And how are you going to hold yourself accountable? Another Dr. Seuss quote, oh, the places you'll go. And I know Michelle and I can't wait to hear about that. Mm-hmm. So with that, I open it up to anybody who has any questions, or do you just want to chat about it, or where you are, or we can learn from one another. You can unmute everybody, Michelle.
I will unmute everyone.
Thank you very much.
So how did that resonate for people? What thoughts do you have?
Well, hi, this is Kathy. And I think a lot of what, what you said really hit home, and working with a coach and coming to the realization that, yes, you have to get out away from the computer and get out there and volunteer, or, whatever it takes to, go to various networking events and just put yourself out there and find your options.
Yeah. But do it with purpose and intent, and
yes.
Yeah, and document it, make it part of your plan.
Yeah. Now, how would you suggest documenting it? Like, do you keep that calendar every week? Do you document your results every week? How do you handle that?
Yeah, that's a good question. I literally do keep that calendar, or I did. Now I have it differently because I still do different social media and different things for my coaching business. So I also just, in my electronic calendar, I document everything I do. So if I happen to meet somebody and we're networking about something, I come back and I put it in my calendar because I'm trying to just account for my time. And then I do go back. I don't have a tool, but I do go back and look at, I'd say probably quarterly, you know, what did I actually accomplish? How did I spend my time? You know, what was the most fruitful? And this is not, again, formal, but I do try to target what yielded the best results.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you have to give it time.
They've also done research, Kathy, that, you know, one, writing down, like journaling about your experiences makes you learn more from it. But if you, in particular, every day focus on your wins, where did you make progress, and keep that over time, people feel more positive about the work that they're doing. They start to see that it's, you know, a series of wins that you put together that create larger progress for you. So it can be really effective to, you know, I'm a big believer in reflection time. And I think that, you know, spending 20 to 30 minutes at the end of your day, just kind of reflecting on what happened, what did I learn, what do I want to carry with me into tomorrow, that's a really valuable, you know, use of your time.
Yeah, I agree. The journal is great because you don't have to write a whole story about your life, but you can document lessons learned every single day.
Yep.
And then look back at what you learned. It becomes like, well, look at what I learned over 365 days, as opposed to look at all the people that didn't hire me. You know, you got to have something to grab onto.
Other questions or thoughts?
Yeah, so this is something, again, that you really have to work with. And the neat thing is that, and that's for the whole process and the LinkedIn and all, that's a whole nother webinar. But as you're doing it, it's just amazing when you do it with intent and purpose. It'll take you down a road that you'll know, okay, I know I'm going where I'm supposed to be going. You just get out there, and at first I'm doing all these things thinking, I don't even know why I'm doing it. I'm doing it because someone told me to do it, or suggested. And then before long, lo and behold, everything at ATD just started leading towards opportunity. So I took that board position and got a little more involved there. So it just depends on how committed you are and how willing you are to step away from your box and color outside your lines.
I like what you mentioned about that too, because I've been so focused on looking for a full-time job and staying within my industry. And you know, the past month or so, I've come to a realization, you know what, part-time work would be fine right now. And you know, maybe doing a couple of different things at the same time would bring me to a better understanding of what I'm actually looking for.
Mm-hmm. Right, and sometimes there's just the immediate pressure is so great that your pathways might be, the detour, the block I talked about might be, what is the one single detour that is the most insurmountable right now, but has to be overcome? And that's where you start. Because in coaching people, I know sometimes it's the financial, sometimes it's not. You have more options. But stuff that we don't like to look about. We don't like to go into our heart. We don't like to look at that. But I think from working with the people that I'm working with, who are all, I'd say 45, 50 and over at this point, and we're all challenged by so much. And we have to look at other things that in the inevitability that what we planned for and the way we thought life was going to be is not going to be. My life is nothing like I thought. My sister and I sit there and we'll say, how did we get where we are? You know, it's nothing at all like I envisioned it at all. But yet there's things that I've experienced that I also would never have experienced had I not been faced with some of these great challenges.
And I think that's kind of the key to being in this place of not knowing what's next. And I think a lot of times the reason that people get stuck is because they want to have more control over where they're going to go and where things are going to be than might exist right now. And sometimes it's really about looking at what are kind of just next steps I can take that feel positive to me, that could create opportunity for me in a way that I may not necessarily anticipate. But one way I think it's really helpful to think about it is, what do I want to be moving toward as opposed to, moving away from something? What do I want more of? What do I, if I make this move, is it going to bring me closer to things that feel more positive to me as opposed to things that are, really negative?
Right. And I know there's only, we could keep going if people want to discuss or chat, but I know there's only a few minutes left. So I just want to tell you, I invite you all, connect with me. You can chat offline if there's something that resonated with you today or something that you're really stuck with and you want to talk through. You can, connect with me on LinkedIn or my Facebook group. Usually LinkedIn is the best way initially, or on my email. So I just want you to know that I know where you're at, and that's why this presentation really came from my heart. It's something that some people have trouble talking about, but I wanted to share it with everybody. And some of the people I have coached had specifically said it just when they went, maybe not the day that we did it, but they went back and they really thought about it and were able to come up with some new pathways of their own. So as you do that, I would like you to know that I'm here for you and I welcome interacting with you.
Thank you so much, Marion. Really appreciate it. And thank you everyone for joining us for today's webinar. Like I said, we will be sending out the handouts and the information, and you'll have plenty of opportunities to, chat with Marion and ask follow-up questions. So thanks everyone. Have a great day.